Unmute yourself, Ruben, please.
Thank you, fellow Toastmasters, and our guest, Pastor Clark, who's also mentoring me, and this is going to help him with what he's mentoring me for his business. Last week, I decided I wanted to give a speech on finding out what it is that it can ignite that inner spark in somebody that takes them over the top, which makes them stand out from everybody else. I first came on board with World Financial Group mid-June of 1990 or 2006, and all I saw was a means of helping my customers. I was a mortgage broker, and most of my clients were people that I had to help them clean up their credit, help them fit within the guidelines to get the financing they were looking for to buy their house or get it into a better loan. And so I knew their finances intimately, and I knew they weren't going to make it to the promised land when it came to retirement. And when I saw this presentation for the company, I'm like, this is it. And I took this young guy that introduced me. He was 26 years old, had a degree in communications from Ohio State, and I was from Michigan. And he just flipped through the chart. I went like 40 appointments with him in 1 month. And I got a couple referrals, which I was looking for mortgages and real estate. But he made $30,000 that month and got promoted to senior marketing director. And I went, oh, I need to get those licenses. And I started recruiting, and the first lady I recruited was a successful real estate agent. She would give me, she was part of a real estate investment group. She had like 14 properties. Half of them were in Hawaii, and she had $2 million in equity. She was trying to get that equity, refinance these properties, and get that money, that cash out. And in 1 month, all that equity in those properties evaporated. The property values just tanked. But she was motivated. She got her life and health license, her Series 6 and 63 license before I even got my life and health license. And I had 4 people on my team, and she had 44 people on her team. And then her husband, and he didn't want to get a policy, but he ended up getting like a $600,000 policy, and he was for a $6 million policy, and he was shaving and found a lump on his neck, went to the doctor, and he had throat cancer. And he was going through chemo. And then her mom, right at the same time, got diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and she had a Down syndrome sister. And she had to take care of all of them at the same time. She was in my ear crying on the phone every day. And it eventually overwhelmed her, and she faded away. But I ended up recruiting like 48 people, but I never could get anybody to get on the stick like she did. And then I ended up getting divorced. 2008 happened. I lost everything. And I went out to the Indian Ocean, did anti-piracy security. I got in the drone business and the LED lighting business, the chemical business. And then I found this office here for the same company here in Edinburgh. And I've got about 10 people I've recruited. Nobody's got their licenses. Nobody's engaged in anything. But I had this guy, a friend of mine, I've been talking to him for like 10 years, never met the guy. He got introduced to me from a friend who was a Green Beret, and he was a futures investor and did venture capital, and he's a millionaire. And he's been taking care of his mom for 10 years, and she finally passed. And so he was coming down here to see me, and he came on board with the company. But he wasn't really cooperative. He wasn't, controllable. He kind of had his own way of doing things. He didn't like the recruiting. He didn't like the meetings, but he liked Hooters. He would go to Hooters for lunch every day. And on the way down here, he stopped into every Hooters from Indiana down all the way down to Fort Lauderdale and all over the country. And he put me on the phone with these Hooters girls, and I'd send him the Saving Your Future book. And he got this one girl who's going to school for business. And she wants to get in the finance world, but she's had 2 DUIs. and she's kind of a party girl, kind of uncooperative. All right. And she kind of dug her heels in, but he talked to her manager. And this girl, she's really smart, but she didn't go to college. She owns her own house. She's single, engaged. She's but really sharp, and she's the most. I mean, it's so evident how cooperative she is. She was on her first training last night, and afterwards she's texted me. She's getting herself her username and password for the website. She's getting, setting up her counter, and made him do the same thing. I mean, he's doing it now because she's doing it, right? And it's like such a contrast. And I'm like, what is it? What is it? It's when you find somebody, and all of us have it in some area, but there's when somebody wants something so bad that nobody can stop them. There's no naysayers, no doubters, people telling them they can't. They don't even hear it, right? They focus on what needs to be done and they get to it. And, I can totally relate to that. That's how I was in boxing. That's how I was to be a Navy SEAL. That's how I was, when I got in mortgages and real estate. I had a certain dream, and I still have that dream today. There are things that can slow you down. There's some devastating things, people dying, the economy collapsing. It can wipe you out, and not just financially, but emotionally. But we all have this part in our brain. If you have a goal strong enough, part of your amygdala will hunt for it. Even if you're going through stress and you go into beta brainwave, which means you can only access what's already in your subconscious mind. You can take in new information, but your brain won't process it. Okay? You won't use it to help you out of your situation. You're stuck in your subconscious. But when you have a goal that's strong enough, it'll be part of it, and your amygdala will hunt for that. It'll always try to find that path to get you closer to it. Her dream, her brother got into a car accident and broke his neck. And he's a quadriplegic, and his mom's taking care of him, but she's got real health issues. They're actually living with her grandparents, and she wants to buy a house that's all set up with the wide doors for the wheelchairs, set up for a quadriplegic. That's her dream. She has that burning desire to do something for her brother and her mom, and her grandmother too, right? So that's what it is. It's when somebody has that deep, that inner, like a coal burning in their heart, just waiting to ignite. That's when you know you've got the right one. And she has it in spades. So, and I probably have 120 people that I put in the counter. We have a counter every time we share the Saving Your Future book. We do a Zoom presentation, or somebody comes on board, or they do a financial strategy. They go in this counter, and I've probably got about 120 people in this counter, but she's the only one that responded the way that she did. Last night, she's on the text with me how to get her username and password for the website. And then the guy that recruited her wasn't that motivated. Now he's pretty motivated, and he was doing the same thing. So that's where the magic is. When you find that person, and you can find people that different same walk of life that you have. You got communication with them, you got relatability, but that just means that they're going to hear what you're saying. If they don't have that spark for something, deep desire for something, then it's really hard to get them to move off their square. You just got to keep feeding. If there's a little spark, you got to keep feeding that flame. You got to keep them, to help them find something to focus on. But if they have it, they got it. All right. Thank you, Josie.
Thank you, Ruben, for that very inspiring speech. Yes, the spark, that's definitely an element I think that we all look for in other people. Either, well, most importantly, we look for that in ourselves, but other people, as you're looking, as mentioned in your speech. And as we were talking before the meeting, that's one thing that was very noticeable yesterday with the Dodger game. Uh, Clayton Kershaw, he's been an outstanding pitcher for years, but now he's in his 30s. And he had a couple of rough seasons, but he actually went back during the winter season and worked on his delivery, some techniques that could, you know, take advantage, even though he's, you know, elderly for a pitcher in his 30s. But and now here he is. He had an excellent game. So he had that spark and desire, even though he's a millionaire, but he still has that spark in him to improve. And just like you say, it's something we look for in others and also within ourselves. So excellent speech.